The Emperor's mercy comes in many forms, but in the trenches of his domain, it arrives most often through the barrel of a las gun or the edge of a combat blade. Yet for those whose suffering has not yet earned them the release of death, there exists another kind of mercy, one that crawls through the mud on tracked wheels, pulled by servitors whose own wounds have long since healed into blessed mechanical function. One that whispers hymns through vox grills while chainsaws sing their surgical prayers in the distance. This is the story of what becomes of the broken. In the 40 honest millennium, war is not merely the continuation of politics by other means. It is the fundamental state of existence, the baseline condition from which all other human endeavors must be measured. And in a galaxy where conflict burns eternal, where every world bleeds and every system screams, the wounded do not simply fade away into comfortable obscurity. They become another resource to be managed, another variable in the grand equations of survival that govern every aspect of Imperial life. The medic stations of the Astra Militarum are not hospitals in any sense that ancient terror might have recognized. They are processing centers, triage zones, where human suffering is sorted and cataloged according to its utility to the war effort. Where the question is never whether a man can be saved, but whether he should be. Where the difference between mercy and efficiency has been ground down to such fine powder that even the most experienced field surgeons cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. Today we follow one such wounded soul through this machinery of calculated compassion. His name is Jorek Vest. Though by the time his journey ends, that name will matter far less than the imperial classification stamped across his medical data slate. His story begins where so many others do in the churned earth and chemical rain of a contested world where the line between the living and the dead shifts with every artillery barrage. The planet is Mordian 7th, a forge world whose sacred manufacturums have been defiled by the green tide of orcs. The 47th Cadian shock troops have been holding trenchline Secundus for 16 days now, though the concept of days has little meaning under the perpetual overcast of smoke and ash that chokes the sky. Time moves differently in the trenches. It crawls during the long watches between enemy assaults when every shadow might conceal a commando and every strange sound could herald another greenskin in charge. And it accelerates to a terrifying pace when the ground trembles with the approach of orc vehicles, when the horizon lights up with muzzle flashes and the air fills with the distinctive whine of incoming shells. Jorek Vest had been a good soldier, not exceptional, not heroic in the way that earns commendations and battlefield promotions, but competent and reliable in the manner that keeps units functional and officers satisfied. He had served with the 47th for 3 years, had survived the grinding urban warfare on Vaxhol Prime and the bitter winter campaigns on Icenia. He had learned to sleep standing up, to eat rations that tasted of recycled corpse starch, to kill without hesitation, and to follow orders without question. These skills had kept him alive through dozens of engagements, had earned him the trust of his squad and the grudging respect of his sergeants. But competence is no armor against random chance, and reliability offers no protection from the cosmic indifference of war. The attack comes at dawn, though dawn on Morian II is merely a slight lightening of the perpetual gloom that passes for daylight. The orc assault is preceded by a barrage from their crude but effective artillery. The distinctive boom of big shooters and the ear-splitting shriek of rocket launchers that sends every guardsman in the trench diving for whatever cover they can find. The Imperial forces had been expecting this. Intelligence reports had suggested that the Greenskins were massing for another push, and the Vox traffic between command posts had carried an undertone of resigned anticipation that every veteran recognized. Joro is manning fire position 7 Delta when the shells begin to fall. A reinforced section of trench that offers a clear field of fire across the crater-pocked killing ground that separates the Imperial lines from the orc positions. His last gun is clean and fully charged. His spare power packs are arranged within easy reach, and his gas mask hangs ready around his neck. He has done this before. He knows the rhythm of enemy assaults, the way they build from tentative probing attacks to full-scale charges that throw everything the orcs have at the Imperial defenses. The first shells are range-finding shots, explosions that bracket the Imperial positions as the orc gun crews adjust their aim. Then comes the real barrage, a sustained bombardment that turns the world into a storm of flying dirt and shattered rocket. Their human forms preserved only to serve as conduits for an intelligence that exists outside normal space and time. Jorik finds himself thinking of the Medikai station where his transformation had begun, of the clinical precision with which his damaged body had been rebuilt according to Imperial specifications. At the time, he had accepted the process as a necessary adaptation to his new circumstances, a practical response to the realities of military service. But now he wonders if there had been another purpose to his augmentation, if the mechanical components integrated into his body might serve functions beyond simple replacement of damaged tissue. The thought becomes more disturbing as he observes the effects of the alien influence on his squad mates' augmented systems. Their mechanical components seem to be responding to whatever force emanates from the gathered workers. Their performance parameters shifting in ways that their original programming never anticipated. Servo motors cycle through movements that serve no apparent purpose. Optical systems focus on empty air as if tracking invisible targets, and communication equipment generates signals that follow no recognizable protocol. Most unsettling of all is the behavior of their medical monitoring systems, the suite of sensors and processes that tracks the health status of augmented personnel. These systems are designed to provide continuous feedback about the integration between organic and mechanical components, alerting medical staff to potential problems before they become critical failures. But now they are reporting biological changes that should be impossible, alterations to tissue structure and cellular composition that suggest fundamental transformation at the molecular level. Sergeant Korvac's leg servos begin to move without conscious direction from their operator, performing a slow, rhythmic march that matches no Imperial drill manual. Trooper Vale's breathing apparatus cycles through patterns that serve no respiratory function, producing harmonics that seem to resonate with sounds coming from outside the shrine. Even Yorik's prosthetic leg begins to exhibit autonomous behavior, its systems responding to input signals that originate from no identifiable source. The realization dawns slowly, filtered through layers of denial and disbelief that the human mind automatically constructs to protect itself from unbearable truths. Their augmentations are not simply malfunctioning. They are being reprogrammed by whatever intelligence controls the transformed workers outside. The mechanical components that had been integrated into their bodies to restore their combat effectiveness are now serving as entry points for an alien consciousness that seeks to claim them as it has claimed the factory workers. But the process is not proceeding as smoothly as it had with the civilian population. The guardsmen's military conditioning and psychological preparation provide some resistance to the transformation, creating a kind of mental static that interferes with the alien influence. Their augmented systems flicker between autonomous operation and conscious control, creating a nightmarish struggle for dominance within their own bodies. Vale is the first to succumb completely, his artificial breathing apparatus suddenly falling silent as his organic components are overwhelmed by whatever force has invaded his system. For a moment he stands perfectly still, his face displaying the same blank expression that characterizes the transformed workers outside. Then he turns toward his comrades with movements that display the same unnatural coordination, his augment voice box generating sounds that hurt to hear. Resistance is unnecessary. He speaks though the words emerge with harmonics that suggest multiple voices speaking in unison. Integration provides transcendence beyond the limitations of individual consciousness. Submit to unity and experience existence unencumbered by the prison of singular identity. Sergeant Korvac responds with last fire, his weapon set to maximum power as he targets the thing that had been his squadmate. The energy beam punches through Vale's chest, destroying organic tissue and mechanical components with equal efficiency. But the transformed trooper continues speaking, even as his body begins to collapse. His final words carrying a tone of satisfaction rather than pain. Thank you for your service to the greater design. Your resistance provides valuable data for future integration procedures. The body falls, but the voice continues to emerge from its artificial speaking apparatus for several seconds after all signs of life have ceased. When it finally falls silent, the other members of the squad are left to contemplate the implications of what they have witnessed. Their comrade's transformation had not been random or accidental, but part of a calculated, The helpless waiting while the enemy tries to kill you with mathematics and high explosives. All a guardsman can do is endure and hope that his position is not selected for special attention. The bombardment lasts for 23 minutes, though it feels like hours. When it finally lifts, the sudden relative quiet is almost as jarring as the noise had been. Through the ringing in his ears, Joro can hear the sound that every Imperial soldier has learned to dread. The deep, guttural roar of orc voices raised in their primitive war cries, punctuated by the mechanical growl of their ramshackle vehicles grinding across the battlefield. Contact front. The shout comes from somewhere down the trench line, though in the aftermath of the barrage, it is impossible to tell exactly where. Greenkins, lots of them. Jorik rises from his crouch and peers over the rim of his fire position, squinting through the drifting smoke and dust that still hangs in the air. At first he sees nothing but the familiar wasteland of shell craters and scattered debris that stretches between the opposing forces. Then the shapes begin to resolve out of the haze. First dozens, then hundreds of orc infantry charging across the killing ground, their crude weapons glinting in the sickly light. Behind them, the larger silhouettes of their vehicles lumber forward, spewing black exhaust and sparks from their jury-rigged engines. The Imperial response is immediate and methodical. Last fire begins to flicker from positions all along the trench line, the distinctive snap-crack of energy weapons, punctuated by the heavier bark of heavy bolters and autocannons. Jorik settles into his firing stance and begins to pick his targets, squeezing off careful shots at the advancing greenkins. His first shot takes an orc boy in the chest, the focused energy beam punching through the creature's crude armor and dropping it in a tangle of limbs. His second shot goes wide, lost in the chaos of the charge. His third finds its mark in the shoulder of a massive orc knob. Though the wound barely slows the beast's advance, this is familiar work, the kind of steady, methodical killing that had kept the 47th alive through so many engagements. Joro falls into the rhythm of it. Acquire target, aim, fire, acquire the next target. Around him, his fellow guardsmen are doing the same. Their combined fire cutting sways through the orc charge. The greenkins are taking horrific casualties, but they keep coming anyway, driven by their species' genetic love of violence and their complete inability to comprehend the concept of a tactical withdrawal. The orc vehicles are the real problem. The infantry charge is meant to pin the Imperial forces in their positions, while the crude but effective tanks and battle wagons close the distance. Jorik can see them now, a motley collection of scrap metal and spite that somehow manages to function, despite looking like it should collapse under its own weight. The lead vehicle is a ramshackle construction that might once have been a rhino transport, though it has been so extensively modified with extra armor plating, weapon mounts, and inexplicable decorative elements that its original function is barely recognizable. The anti-tank teams are already engaging the vehicles, their missile launchers and last cannons reaching out to find weak points in the orc armor. The lead vehicle staggers under multiple hits, smoke pouring from its engine compartment, but it keeps grinding forward. Its main gun, a massive cannon that appears to have been welded directly to the chassis, swings toward the Imperial lines and fires. Joro never sees the shell that changes everything. One moment he is lining up another shot at an advancing orc boy, and the next the world explodes around him in a cascade of light and sound and flying debris. The shell hits the trench wall 3 meters to his left, and while the reinforced rockcrete absorbs most of the blast, the shock wave is enough to fling him backward into the opposite wall of the trench. He lands hard, his lasgun flying from his hands to clatter somewhere in the bottom of the position. For a moment he lies still, stunned and disoriented, his ears ringing and his vision blurred. Then the pain hits him, a spreading fire that starts in his left leg and radiates upward through his torso. When he tries to sit up, his left arm refuses to cooperate, hanging uselessly at his side. Blood is running down his face from a scalp wound, and when he looks down at his leg, he can see white bone protruding through the torn fabric of his uniform. The battle continues around him, but Jorik is no longer part of it. He has joined that vast category of Imperial personnel whose primary contribution to the war effort has become their ability to consume medical resources. In the space of a single shell burst, he has transformed from an asset into a liability.